I hope everyone feels good and okay with their space here. We are very happy on behalf of APSTE and the Bulgarian Wind Energy Association to welcome you at this year's Resource Southeast event. There were a lot of obstacles to having this event here, but I'm extremely happy to tell you that this event is probably the best attended event in the whole region. We expect, together with our online visitors, over 400 people to join us this year. So welcome here. And before we start with the regional aspects of renewable energy in Southeast Europe, we will be having Bruce Douglas online to welcome you and tell you a little bit more about how Resource started, what's behind it, and what you can expect to happen here in a few more years, let's say. So, Bruce, it's your turn.
Hello and welcome to Resource Southeast Europe. An absolute pleasure to be invited to open the conference to you today. And thanks so much to the organisers, especially to Nikola, for the invitation. Unfortunately, I can't be with you there personally. It's a great shame for me. I was there present last year and thoroughly enjoyed the event, and especially impressed with the number of participants and corporate buyers who were there. So I hope at least as many of you are there today. So first of all, to introduce myself, Bruce Douglas, the Director of Business and Communications at Eurelectric. And some years ago, I think it's almost like 6 years ago, we founded the Resource platform in Europe. So the platform to connect renewable energy buyers and suppliers. Back then, we had no idea how that would grow. But looking at it today, it's been quite significant. Then there was only a handful of progressive corporates, mainly from the ICT sector, who were active in corporate sourcing of renewables. And now RE100 has over 350 large corporates, including a range of sectors, large energy buyers, retail, and also, of course, the ICT sector active in this space. So it's great to see that. Unfortunately, the events with the Russian invasion of Ukraine have caused quite a significant amount of uncertainty in the energy. Hello and welcome to Resource Southeast Europe. An absolute pleasure to be invited to open the conference to you today. And thanks so much to the organisers, especially to Nikola, for the invitation. Unfortunately, I can't be with you there personally. It's a great shame for me. I was there present last year and thoroughly enjoyed the event, and especially impressed with the number of participants and corporate buyers who were there. So I hope at least as many of you are there today. So first of all, to introduce myself, Bruce Douglas, the Director of Business and Communications at Eurelectric. And some years ago, I think it's almost like 6 years ago, we founded the Resource platform in Europe. So the platform to connect renewable energy buyers and suppliers. Back then, we had no idea how that would grow. But looking at it today, it's been quite significant. Then there was only a handful of progressive corporates, mainly from the ICT sector, who were active in corporate sourcing of renewables. And now RE100 has over 350 large corporates, including a range of sectors, large energy buyers, retail, and also, of course, the ICT sector active in this space. So it's great to see that. Unfortunately, the events with the Russian invasion of Ukraine have caused quite a significant amount of uncertainty in the energy market and also in the PPA market. Of course, we saw the energy crisis with energy price rises, both gas and, of course, consequentially, electricity price rises. And that also caused uncertainty in the PPA market, and we saw price rises in PPAs. So that's meant that the growth of PPAs in Europe has stalled in 2022. In fact, it decreased for the first time ever. I believe that 2021 was about 8.7 gigawatts of installed, of signed PPA contracts. And in 2022, it was something like 8.1 in Europe. Globally, we saw, again, some significant growth. And what we're seeing in 2023 from the forecasters is, again, some growth in Europe in PPAs. So back then, when we started Resource, we were at like corporate sourcing 1.0, one could call it. Corporates purchasing electricity off the grid, moving to corporate sourcing 2.0, which was signing contracts, long-term contracts, PPAs. And I'll talk in a moment about what we see as the future, which is corporate sourcing 3.0. the high impact corporate sourcing, and how to accelerate decarbonisation. Before that, it's clear that the appetite from corporates for renewable energy is still there. Demand is outstripping supply. And in order to meet that demand, we need now some policy action, some urgent policy action on a couple of areas. Firstly, on permitting. So we need new build renewable projects to be permitted as fast as possible. The Renewables Directive, so the RED III, which is coming through, is very positive in that respect, as are the emergency measures, helping to accelerate the permitting of new build wind and solar projects. And the second is grids. In the same way, no point building renewables without the grid connections to transfer the electricity. And we're seeing some great progress on that. So my final point is about that high impact corporate sourcing, and we're seeing many companies now looking at hourly matching of renewable energy. So this is 24/7 carbon-free energy, it's called, which allows corporates to match on an hourly basis or even sub-hourly their renewable energy demand with renewable energy production. And what that does is guarantee a truly renewable based consumption throughout the whole year. It increases transparency and the credibility of reporting and guarantees that the renewables are being supplied every hour of every day to the corporate off-taker. Of course, it adds some complexity, but that is being solved through new business models and, of course, the granular certificates, the guarantees of origin that are required to account for that. So I'll leave it there and wish you a very successful conference and look forward to seeing you hopefully there next year. Thanks very much.
Thank you to Bruce too, and I will invite the participants from the first panel to join me on stage, and Nikola will say a few introductory words for our markets here.
Чуваме ли се? Добро утро! Здравейте, дами и господа! Благодаря ви, че сте днес тук. Аз ще премина на английски, защото предполагам, че има повече от нашите гости от България тук в залата, които говорят английски, отколкото чуждестранни гости, които говорят български. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'll actually sit down, not to strike out. I'm extremely happy that we have so many of you here today. It's a great honor to host the third edition of Resource Southeast. And as Mariyana said, to have more than 400 attendees join us live and online. It's a great achievement, I think. And as Bruce Douglas said, for us also it was unclear how it's going to pan out when we started this initiative a couple of years ago. It has proven to be a valuable platform where corporate buyers and corporate sellers meet and exchange ideas, where they also discuss with policymakers how things in the region are going to change, hopefully for the good. Before we start the panel, I just wanted to state a couple of facts. So first of all, as many of you know, the price of renewable technologies has decreased dramatically. Over the last 20 years, we were able to come down with more than 90% in capex for solar, similar figure, or at least, let's say, roughly 80% for wind. We were able to reach more than 2,000 gigawatts of installed capacity in the last 20 years, 2,000 gigawatts. And if we were able to do, let's say, the solar part, about 1.1 terawatts for more than 15 years, 15 to 18 years, the next terawatt we are going to install globally in the next 3 to 4 years. So let that sink in. It's incredible breakneck speed of development, similar to what we saw in the telecom sector, in the ICT sector. Actually, I had ChatGPT write my speech today, but I decided not to read it. Maybe it would have been a bit too much, but it did quite well. So to put things in a regional perspective, Southeast Europe was able also in about 15 years or so to install more than 10 gigawatts actually more than 15 gigawatts of wind and solar combined. And I think that if we take the broader region also, including not only Bulgaria, Greece, Turkey, Romania, but also Serbia, Montenegro, North Macedonia, Croatia. We are probably going to double that around 2030. So this is also a massive development, which is going to change significantly the power systems in the region. What I'm happy about is that we are able to make a collaborative approach here. We are making to create not only an event, but a community of companies that are, of course, competitors to a certain level, like our countries. They're, to a certain level, competitors, but we also need to collaborate because this new paradigm, power systems based more and more on renewables and storage, and of course other solutions, they're going to require a lot of regional cooperation. Cooperation between companies, but also between transmission system operators, between regulators, between policymakers. So together we can make the change pan out positively for everybody in the region, and I think this is also more or less the topic of our first panel today.
Absolutely, thank you, Nikola. Taking this cue on competition and collaboration, I want to open officially this panel. We have here today national industry associations from Bulgaria, Romania, Greece, and Turkey in an attempt to show you that the Southeast region has really a lot to show in terms of resources and capabilities and opportunities for development. How this develops, however, is question mark. And it's a question mark throughout the whole event. We will try to capture all the different aspects from that are involved in. And I hope that you will have a very interesting event. But right now, let's look at how the market is developing in the different countries, starting perhaps from Bulgaria. We have the wind side and the solar side. So let's have our views, just introduce each other, yourself with a few words for the audience, and tell us, maybe starting with Miglena, how do you see Bulgaria in terms of renewables development, in what Bruce said? Are we 1.0, 2.0, 3.0? Where are we in terms of corporate procurement of renewable energy?
Real pleasure to have you here today. My name is Miglena Stoilova, and I'm chairperson of the Bulgarian Wind Energy Association. For those that I didn't manage to meet, obviously it's quite many people that we are happy to have today. I'm for quite long in the wind sector in Bulgaria, more or less as it started, so was being part of the first wave, as we call it, but we don't want to have waves any longer, but rather a trend. This was like a keynote from last year's event. So we hope that the renewable development will be a trend from now on, and we will not going to see any waves any longer. So in terms of potential of wind, I'm going to speak because Nikola is going to talk more about solar, but they are interrelated quite a lot. We are happy to share that our analysis show that Bulgaria could and have the potential to install 4 gigawatts of onshore wind by 2030. And in fact, the projects under development currently are more or less in the same capacity. The lengthy development process of wind projects actually placed them in a relatively early development stage still, but we hope definitely that by 2030 we're going to manage to have these 4 megawatts installed and operational. On a positive note, Bulgaria is among the countries that have a favorable both wind and solar resource. That would allow the country to build optimal, well-balanced mix of the two technologies, which along with the hydro capacity that we have in the country and not so high storage capacity would allow us to have base load renewable electricity to a major extent. So of course, that requires quite a lot of work on the side of the grid operators and us as developers to manage to build this proper mix of the technologies and storage capacities. To go even further, the potential of wind and solar will be sufficient not only to satisfy the domestic consumption, but will also facilitate the country's net electricity export position that we are happy with having right now as well. On the other hand, should we fail to develop this proper mix of solar capacity, we would need to rely on a higher level of storage facilities in order to be able to phase out the carbon-intensive electricity production, which is a suboptimal technological solution and will make our electricity price high and not competitive on the regional market. So very likely that in the medium term we will be in a net import position. So this is a scenario that we definitely would like to avoid. So let's work on the balance mix of the technologies. Thank you, Mariyana. That's an introduction.
Let's work on a balanced mix, but also more flexibility in the grid, for which we will continue tomorrow with the specialized panel. Nikola, what would you like to add to this brief description of our market here in Bulgaria?
I fully agree with Miglena. There are a lot of projects in the pipeline. We need a healthy mix. I'm sure also in the next panel, Mr. Tsachev from the Bulgarian TSO is going to give us an update, but I can imagine we are now way above 30 gigawatts of new requests, so the pipeline is massive. Not that many projects are being built. The reason for that is, there are actually several reasons, among them permitting, but clearly also, let's say, the professional approach by some of the developers is leaving some room for improvement, and I can imagine it's the same in Greece, the same in Romania, the same in Turkey. So one of the reasons, permitting, another reason is obviously how many projects are getting financed due to expected saturation. So we're going to see ups and downs in the market. This is clear. But now we're in the growth phase, and this is going to continue for a couple of years. I would be interested to perhaps leave a bit to Dimitris to tell us about Greece in order to put what's happening in Bulgaria in a regional perspective. Myself, apart from being the chairman of APSTE, I'm also developing projects in Bulgaria and Romania, so I know that what happens here, what happens in Romania, what happens in Greece is interrelated. So when we discuss Bulgaria and we speak about the healthy mix between wind, solar, storage, perhaps long-term storage solutions down the road, this does not only affect what happens in our countries, it is really important what happens in the broader region as well.
Yes.
Absolutely, we are all connected. And because we are all connected, we will try now again with the technical connection and put our online participant, Irene Mihai, from the Romanian Photovoltaic Association, and have her brief view on what are currently the biggest challenges for the Romanian market and how, in terms of development, we look at Romania. Irene, are you able to join us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Mariyana, for giving me the floor, and thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to join you here today, although I'm online. I'm in Bucharest right now, but it's a pleasure to be here with you. Now, as Nikola mentioned, we are basically interlinked when it comes to our challenges and our problems. I like to think that we are brothers, we're transnational brothers. But what can I tell you is the fact that sun is once again shining over Romania, because as you know, we had a golden age of solar PV during the first wave of renewables, when we had around 1.5 gigawatts of solar installed. Now we see that the market is once again effervescent, and we see a new investitional appetite. In terms of challenges, The permitting is not that much of an issue in Romania, but the fact that the legislation is a little bit unclear when it comes to solar PV development. So, for example, at the moment, it's really difficult to develop projects that are over 50 hectares, so around 42 megawatts. But I think this is an issue that we are going to overcome sooner than later. So I like to think that we will once again have this surge in solar PV development, and it would be sustained, not a wave. Thank you. For the moment, this is my assessment of the market. But of course, I'd be happy to develop it a little bit sooner during this panel.
I do hope we will have more great news for the next edition of Resource Southeast. And thank you, Rene, for giving this brief overview of the momentum in Romania. We know that Romania is a big market, so we do expect our north neighbor to develop both on the wind and solar side very well. And some of the projects can be cross-border indeed. Going south now with Dimitris. And we have a presentation because he wanted to illustrate how Greece is developing on the different sides, not only wind and solar, but on the storage, because Greece is a clear leader in the region in this respect. So Dimitris, introduce yourself with a few words and tell us how Greece is advancing with bold steps on this way.
You. Thank you very much. First of all, my name is Dimitris Varlamis. I'm located in Greece. I'm working in Zinco the last 10 years.
It's the other, not this
now
presentation, the previous one.
No, I'm not Aurora. Definitely. So I was telling that I'm located in Greece. I'm working in Zinco for 10 years. I'm head of sales in Southeastern Europe. Of course, besides, except Bulgaria, because my good friend and colleague Mariyana is fortunately is responsible for this great market. First of all, I would like to, of course, I'm a vice president in a Greek Hellenic Association of PV companies. And I would like to make one comment. The exciting thing about the renewable is that we gather in the same room the people that would like to save the planet and the people that would want to gain money. So this is, for me, the most exciting thing. We see how this is developing, is the reality. I mean, we cannot follow the reality, and the numbers I will show to you, especially in Greece, the Greek market is impressive. So the Greek market was in a deep sleep for some years, and we wake up 2019 until 2022. We installed. This is you can see the connected megawatts. I'm talking about solar, of course. It's from 2019. It's around 2.6, 2.8 gigawatts. We expect 2023 to install over 1 gigawatt of projects. And this is the planning, long-term energy planning and the targets. We revised the national energy plan, and from 7.7 gigawatts for PV installation, we reached the target of 14 gigawatts by 2030. And the target from battery energy systems, we started from very low numbers. Now we reach for 2030 7.4 gigawatts. Sorry, 5.6 gigawatts. This is the target. I'm talking about batteries because the batteries are directly connected with the PV projects. So you can see this is the madness of the market. Okay, the capacity. I would start from the down of the last line. The capacity of the transmission system in Greece will be the target will be 2030, 28.6 gigawatts, and the projects with producers certificates renewable, it's almost 100 gigawatts. Out of them, 63 is PV projects. We operate 10 gigawatts, new project with connection terms, 11 gigawatts, and all the projects are waiting in the line is 25 gigawatts. So you understand what is something's wrong here. Of course, on the other hand, we understand that the market, the reality is totally different what we plan, meaning that the electricity, the needs for electricity production is increasing. Even our cigarettes are, we have to charge them, our vehicles, everything. So we have to see what will be the actual demand in the next year and adjust our let's say, needs. Regarding the storage, we see that in storage, which is the future, of course, the capacity of the license so that we have already is more or less 23 gigawatts. Again, for renewable, for all renewable, and we have pending application up to almost 7 gigawatts. So the number are increasing. We have this decision from European Commission, which is providing aid of almost 340 million to support the construction and operation of storage facilities in Greece, and we're going to use these amounts in order to have a new, let's say, scheme with storage system in Greece up to 1 gigawatt next year, through 3 rounds of bidding processes, and all the projects that have already secured the production license will participate. There will be the aid will be granted as investment in a capex of 200,000 euros per megawatt, and of course an annual support for a 10-year period. It's a totally new phase for us, a new market for us. So we will see how this will be developed. But by end of the year, we're going to have 1 gigawatt of storage to be completed and constructed by end of 2025. And of course, we have a residential, a very interesting, a very nice residential scheme for self-consumptions up to 10 kilowatt with storage. The government has gives subsidies up to let's say 50% of the system if you combine with storage, meaning with storage is for free, the battery. And we expect 30,000 storage systems by end of, I would say end of 2024, because it's a new market. And never put your battery in your living room. This is okay. Thank you.
From a safety perspective.
Yes.
Thank you too. I will be watching this scheme with great interest to see how it can be carried over here to Bulgaria. It's very interesting indeed how Greece is, I would say, ahead at least 2 steps before for her northern neighbors. But is it the same on the south? Can we look at Turkey? I know that the National Energy Plan for 2035 expects to increase the solar capacity 5 times and the wind to triple. So how does it look in Turkey?
Morning, everyone. My name is Svetoslav Mladenov. I'm a representative person of 2 companies. One is Smart Technology, and the second one is Smart Energy. Of course, for the last minute, I am responsible to make some words with regarding of the Turkish Association of Photovoltaic. When I heard my colleague Miglena Stoilova with regarding of Bulgaria, and I compare to Turkey, I see that we have a lot of things which is overlapping, especially if we're talking about the renewable energy. especially when we're talking about the geothermal possibilities. Bulgaria and Turkey is one of the biggest, let's say, geothermal resources in Europe, except Iceland. And the second one is the solar energy, because maybe a lot of people know that the solar panels start working 3 hours before in Turkey than in Europe. This is connected with the geographical location and strategic location for these two countries. And for that reason, Turkish government tapped this information and synchronize all possibilities which is connected with the wind, solar, hydro, and geothermal resources, and prepare a business energy plan for the 15 years since 2020 until 2035, which is connected with how we maximum use these resources and to increase the capacity of his electricity production in Turkey. Because for the next years, everybody knows that that will be the, let's say, one of the core business in not only in Europe, in Asia regions, and of course in other continents, because due to the new program which is connected with renewable energy all around the world, everybody start to produce solar panels and to, let's say, construct them in a different part of the world. Especially in Turkey, 2020, the capacity of renewable energy was 95 gigawatts, and the expectation is to grow to 190 gigawatts. This gap of 96 gigawatts is coming from the 35 gigawatts is coming from the water, 29 is coming from wind, and 53 gigawatts is coming from the solar energy. And of course, one more thing which is very similar, like in Bulgaria, is the nuclear plant, which is now in the construction process in Acu. And there will produce, combined with biomass and other 5 gigawatts. So this is the, let's say, plan for the Turkish energy, how we'll be growing for the next 15 years. Of course, this period of 15 years is, let's say, in a period of time of 555. That is the years which will be improve the electricity and increase the capacity of energy energy supply in Turkey. For the first five period of time, they will arrange 25 gigawatts, then 35, 41 to the end, and I'm sure that they will be completed until the end of this 15 years period of time.
So a lot of gigawatts, a lot of projects in the pipeline. And how does it happen that we have such a big pipeline, but at the end less than 10% connect to the grid? With that question, I would like to start the discussion between us and see how do we find the synergies between our markets? What is needed to tie up this great potential that the region obviously has in terms of both resource and investor interests in such projects? So how do we move these projects forward, and how do we make the markets integrate in a way that all the corporates gathered here can get an advantage with the low prices? Miglena, would you like to start?
Of course, yeah. Taking from what you already just said, and following upon my previous introductory speech, so in the same way that we need to build a balanced mix of technology here domestically in order to benefit from the regional resources potential, which is favorable in terms of solar and geothermal in Turkey in Greece, etc., we definitely need a very good interconnection, interconnection capacity, transborder interconnection capacity. And it's not only here regionally, but within the whole European electricity network. So unfortunately, we see quite often, perhaps every day, we are well connected with Romania. The prices of electricity are quite similar, but unfortunately it's not the same with Greece. So we could probably export more cheap electricity to Greece, and this would benefit the producers here. Same with Turkey, same with whole Europe. So for this, we definitely need a much better interconnection capacity throughout the whole Europe. And this is a discussion we used to have with our TSO, so I hope this will continue, and we are going to have some fruitful projects in the future. On the other hand, what is problematic in terms of making this interest in projects and development projects materializing, so I cannot save to talk about the bottlenecks that we are seeing in Bulgaria. So unfortunately, Bulgaria is in a political instability for the last 2 years, which is not helping in changing the legislation that will accelerate the permitting process. It's not even helping to sort out the deficiency that we have in the legislation and the regulatory environment that will streamline the development process so that the investors have the predictability in order to go forward with their investments. Something that is very specific for the wind sector, and I would like to point out, is the fact that quite late in the development process, for example, we get the wind developers, not we, get clarity about the grid capacity, and they have their binding statement from the TSO that the project can be connected. This basically happens 2 or 3 years from the start of the development process, when already a lot of time and resources have been invested. On one hand, this discourages the investments or delays them. On the other side, the TSO is not considering early on and early enough these projects in its 10 years plan for the development of the transmission grid. They will be considered once they have their binding statement or preliminary grid connection agreement. That's why we believe that this has to happen sooner. So at a much earlier stage, the wind projects need to get a firm and binding commitment for interconnection so that they're included in the investment plans of the TSO. Another major bottleneck for wind. Nikola.
No, I'm listening.
Another major bottleneck that we see for wind is very specific. It's not that it's not the same for solar, but for wind it happens probably to the majority of the investors in the interconnection capacity. So basically interconnection capacity lacks in the areas where we have positive wind potential. Almost all wind developers are faced with the requirement to make disproportionately high expenditures for extension and rehabilitation of the transmission grid, which makes this project financially not viable. And to allow for wind capacity to be connected to the grid, which is very important in order to have the well-balanced mix of renewable technologies that I was talking about previously, we think and believe that the TSO should consider at an earlier stage the development project in their investment plans, as I said. And the other thing is that we believe and could help in making working projects that could apply to benefit from the available EU funds for projects of the grid, for the development of the grid. So yeah, this is in summary some of the how shall I say it, major things that we are
Major
facing, and they are
roadblocks on the way.
Maybe
for
if
the
I
wind
can add
industry.
something
Could you
on that.
focus on the synergies?
Yeah, exactly. So
Not on the problem.
first of all, there are some issues. That's clear. I mean, permitting. I've been doing a lot of complaining about permitting myself for the last couple of years. So I'll try not to dig into that. But there are issues. It takes quite too long. I mean, for wind projects, it takes easily 5-6 years to develop a project, which is ridiculous. It should be changed. And I hope this is going to happen. It's one of the topics we are going to discuss in the next panel. I also hope that we have at least most of our political representatives in the next panel, because we have very intensive negotiations about forming a new government eventually, after 5 snap elections over the last 2 years. So we're in a political limbo. But coming back to renewables, so what are the issues? We see a big pipeline in Bulgaria, like in Romania, in Greece, similar in Turkey. Not many projects coming online. Why? Development issues, yes. Issues with the grid, yes, this is a practical problem. Not only because of permits, but because of, ordering a transformer now takes 2 years. And you can order one when you're at the very last stage of development. So you develop a project for 2-3 years, 5 if it's wind, and then you can place a purchase order for a transformer, and it takes another 2 years to produce it, to install it. So in order to finance a project, you go to a bank. The bank will ask you, do you have a PPA? Is it for 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years? Is there some certainty, at least for, let's say, half the cash flow that you are going to earn? So half the megawatt hours you're going to produce. Of course, every developer wants to sign a PPA with a reputable off-taker, be it an energy trader, be it an industrial consumer. But then the question is, when is this project coming online? We come back to the permitting issue, to the grid connection issue. Ultimately, projects are being built. It's not easy, it's hard, but when you get to the final stage, you're able to pull it together and to finance, execute the project. But there is clearly a gap between the speed and let's say, the sheer volume of the pipeline in our countries, and especially in Bulgaria, and what is coming online. I think that last year, according to data from the TSO, we had roughly 600 megawatts, I think, that were built and connected, or maybe under construction and to be connected. This year, perhaps it's going to be similar. So Bulgaria is kind of following Greece with, let's say, 2 years delay, and we might see a very similar pattern. So for me, actually, the bigger question compared to permitting and even to, signing the PPAs and financing the projects now is how we are going to manage that in a couple of years, in 3, 4, 5 years, when we have, let's say, 7-8 gigawatts in Greece already, when we have cumulative capacity of, let's say, 3-4 gigawatts in Bulgaria, solar, some new wind capacity, hopefully about 2 gigawatts are going to be built in the next, let's say, 4 years. Turkey has an extremely ambitious program, and from what we've seen historically, Turkey is able to execute. And then Romania, of course, similar situation like in Bulgaria, but permitting is a bottleneck that is overcomable. And Romania, being a bigger country with some more lively industry, is also an easier place to sign a PPA and to finance a project. So we can assume safely that Romania is going to develop with the same pace as Bulgaria, about, let's say, roughly gigawatt a year, 700 megawatts to a gigawatt a year for the next couple of years. So what is going to happen with these new loads that are coming from renewables? And are industrial off-takers, energy traders, going to be on the other side of the deal when you want to show a secure cash flow? So this is one key challenge. How do we de-risk this whole enterprise for developers, for sponsors, for banks, for energy traders? And then how we regionally are able to exchange electricity physically, but also let's say, on the spot market in a way that smooths these imbalances that might be created by new operators locally, and ultimately how we as a region, all of the countries that are now represented here, are able to export excess electricity in low price time frames to Western Northern Europe, and how we can import back cheaper at the given period of time electricity from Northern and Western Europe, let's say from offshore wind plants in the North Sea. So that's for me, I think, the interesting topic of our discussion, and probably what buyers and energy traders also want to assess a little bit.
So grids and markets, if I can summarize in 2 words. And while Dimitris and Svetoslav think of what they would like to bring on this topic of grids and markets and how we find synergies between our markets, I want to announce that we will take 2 questions from the audience. So if any of you is already ready with the questions, raise your hand and someone will come to you with the microphone. Dimitris, perhaps your view on the grids market synergies.
Well, I will talk about solar because this is my expertise. Solar market started like swimming in a swimming pool in a protective and very elite environment, but now we are swimming in the ocean, and this is the real life. But there are some sharks, some threats around us, and how this market will develop. A lot of threats, or a lot of bottlenecks or obstacles, like the grid, like financing, like supply chain, like what is happening with the politicians' decision about the Chinese production and how we treat it. It's a big topic. I can also discuss about this. And of course, we have to change our mentality, meaning that everybody has to change their mindset. We have to, first of all, and this is important why we discuss this, is the first time I participate as association with other association of neighborhood countries, meaning we have to change. The same should do the TSO and or the politicians or the investors. The investors, for example, has in a safe environment of feed-in tariff, then in feed-in premium, then in some PPAs, go to the bank, take the money, easy thing. But now they have to put skin in the game. For example, it's easy to accuse them, let's say, TSO and the grid operators, that they're not doing the job and they don't provide the grid capacity. But for me, the investors, they have to participate in this. And for me, the big picture is we have one market. It's a European market. And the advantage of our region, as our colleague said, is that we are standing in the east, in the morning, in the dawn of the consumers, meaning we produce when the consumer in the Central Europe is still sleeping. So if we can build all these interconnections and try to store the energy, then when the consumers are waking up, we can supply with energy. The same with Spain or Portugal, the other. So if we see as a one market, not Greek market, not Bulgarian market, not Turkish market, as a one market, we have to make decisions with this mindset. This is my approach. And we have another thing which is coming is batteries. For example, all the projects in the future, I think this is started from Chile. It's obligated all the PV projects to be combined with batteries. So this is also the future.
Our time machine.
Just one comment. I read somewhere about Greece and Turkey as well that if, let's say, a solar or wind project is opting for co-location with battery storage, you jump the queue, so to say. So you're able to be processed quicker in terms of permitting procedures. Well, is that correct?
No, it's a different category, yes, but not. You don't have, let's say,
Priority.
Priority. The priority is already set and already distributed to some projects. We see how this will be developed, but again, this is the future. This is how we have to, let's say, make our plans. But everybody should participate in this, not only the government, the politicians, or grid operators, or the investors, all together. And another comment about the grids. I mean, in Greece, we're discussing 10 years how we will interconnect the Crete, island of Crete, with the mainland of Greece. 10 years. And we did it in 6 months. I mean, what I'm saying is that building the grids, it's not, let's say, like building motorways or metro. It's construction is easy. I mean, if you have the fund, if you have the permits, if you want to do it as a country, the state, as a fast-track procedure, you can do it. Okay, how you will distribute and what is the design of the networks, this is a problem. We need to know what we want. But this is the only way.
I think it's interesting that we speak so much about transmission. We have a separate panel on that, but it seems that this is becoming, you know, one of the key topics.
Yes, and we have to evolve as a market. I'm talking investors to get also to put skin in the game and participate in the grids. This is my perception.
If you don't mind, I would like to share some thoughts with regarding what you say, Dimitris, that we always looking for on one market. I'm talking about the European market. I'm not talking about the separately country, what they produce and finally what they find. I mean, that's commercial we are talking about. And for that reason, when an investor is coming to invest in one country, of course, they would like to predict all, let's say, resources which they coming from this country and how to be invest in these resources, and the final result will be on the high level. So for that reason, when we're talking about, just for the example, for the solar energy, each investor is looking for the location of the country. And again, I'm talking about Turkey. The solar irradiation hours is 2,700 per year, which means 7.5 hours per day is working one solar panel in Turkey, compared to Germany, where it's 3 hours less than what you can find in Turkey and Bulgaria, of course. So for that reason, I'm thinking that when we find some investors, they're looking for the best, I mean, capacity of each resource they find, and it's really important. And of course, the second one is the biggest investor in each country is the government, because a lot of program is coming from the government proposal and financing. And for that reason, Turkish government connecting with his investment program for the next 15 years, as I mentioned, they starting with one solar project of 140 megawatt project in Turkey, which is more than 71 million US dollar. And the expectation is to produce 250 million kilowatt-hours of these projects for the next years.
So the question remains, how do we get this energy to the market
Yeah,
that we produce?
Are there
any questions from the audience? Otherwise, we will continue the discussion. Here there is. Please introduce yourself with the name.
Yeah, it works. Hey, I'm Severin Vartigo from Enery. I have a question to all speakers. You mentioned a lot of the hurdles or the complications the renewable developers are facing, like financing, offtake, permitting, grid availability. Can you try ranking them, or at least outline which is the most severe one in your opinion?
Wow, that's a difficult question. Who wants to start?
I can start, but
Okay.
to continue the tradition that I'm starting. I would rank them from in terms of like which is more immediate to have the projects connected and operational. So that's why I would say the grid is the first thing. In terms of probably the next thing is the offtake of electricity, but it's more of like a technical complication, not really a true problem, because there is definitely interest on the side of the industrial and the corporate consumer to buy renewable electricity. So here the important thing is to have good cooperation with traders and good communication between us as a producer and potential off-takers. So the grid, first in the interconnection locally, and also the transborder capacity. This is maybe they go together as hand in hand in order to be able to benefit from the various regional specific potential. And financing, of course, if we have properly done the interconnection and the plants in operation and we have proper offtake, I think the financing will be very easy. Not easy, but it will be done quicker and it will be more, less problematic. So that's why I rank it as a third.
So grid offtake and then?
And then financing maybe.
And financing, three. I will ask the other participants to also choose three and be quick because we are rather out of time already. And we'll take one more question from the audience, then it's time for coffee break. So your three.
Okay. Again, it depends when you, I mean, what is your looking at for example, if you're looking for a project to be developed now, yes, grid is the problem. But I would say the biggest, let's say, challenge is Europe to decide what they want, what we want. If we want to set a certain target, not only gigawatts, etc., but how we're going to do it and support it, I think the biggest, let's say, challenge is to decide exactly what we want. For example, I mentioned before, for political reasons, we see that we start putting some obstacles to the Chinese products. Without, I mean, but keep in mind that the Chinese modules, the cheap Chinese modules, drive us to have cheap electricity from solar production. So my question is, what we want? We want to change this transition to change from natural gas to solar power or renewable or solar, for example, with cheap Chinese modules or with expensive European modules after 10 years. I mean, this is not a market decision, it's a political decision. So it's
absolutely, it's quite
so
understandable.
For me, the most important thing is to clarify what we want and to focus on that.
Yes, I can confirm that even from the Bulgarian point of view and how our energy strategists can't focus on what we want and we want everything, it's very important to have your priority list. So Nikola, what's your priority list in terms of
so my priorities
yes.
That's just to sum up. It's for me, it's a political decision. What as a European, as a one market, what we want. The second, of course, grid and financing.
Grid and financing, what we want.
I really liked the question and of course the answer. So I'll try not to repeat, but basically for the same situation, you see different things if you're the hammer or if you're the nail, yeah? So it really depends, Severin, who you ask. So if you ask a developer, permitting and grid connection are the big issues, clearly. If you ask the investors, it's PPA availability, financing, terms, etc. If you ask energy traders, if you ask financing institutions and banks, it's risk allocation, how you price this risk, how you hedge it, and how you make sure you don't lose money when you support or when you engage in a deal with renewable energy projects. So if you ask a national association, then it's sustainability of the whole thing. How we don't have a boom and bust cycle, how we don't overdo it, how we don't, make the local communities our enemy, but work with them and work against disinformation, because there are idiots who go around and say, wind turbines are gonna make you sick. They have radioactivity and bring cancer to people. Then there are people who say solar plants are putting glass on our fields and our valuable land, mirrors, so they're going to kill the soil and we're never going to have agricultural production there. This is all bullshit, but okay, that's what people say. And of course, if you ask transmission system operators, they want to just know, okay, which of these 100 applications is the real one, Obviously, it's not going to be all 100 of them, maybe 5, maybe 10, but how do I know? So people complain there is no grid connection, but if there is no market signal, no price signal, how do you distinguish between real investors and speculators that just want to put a couple of folders together, flip them, and go live on the beach? So different stakeholders have a different opinion what's important. My 3 takes, I will try to be a bit more high level. I would say long-term predictability, so that all stakeholders know that this is not going to be a show for a couple of years, but it's going to be a long-term thing, which I truly believe in. Controlling volatility, price volatility, even physical volatility in the grids. And the third one is, just make sure that the risk allocation is distributed fairly, and that if need be, for a period of time, European and state institutions are in place to de-risk or create a perception of being there as a safety net to de-risk investments. And if that happens, I think at the high level, of course, a lot of details underneath, we need to be confident this is going to be a longer market, and even though we are going to have volatility, it's not going to be a boom and bust cycle.
And Svetoslav?
Yes, you say so many truly things. Nikola, say yes. That's my short answer. But just I would like to mention a couple of words with regarding of all these things. Yes, it's very difficult to find the right project, because a lot of investor is coming with fantastic projects, fantastic explanations. So for that reason, it's the company like Smart Energy, which is EPC company, which is engineering, procurement, and construction. So for that reason, when one project is coming on the map, this company will be guaranteed that this project is absolutely truly, and each investor will be interested in banks and etc. So it's really important on the first stage to be well done prepared, especially if we're talking about for the long term of years and cooperation. And of course, everybody's looking for the PPA contract, long-term PPA contract. So that's my proposal. I mean, to be more careful when we choose the projects.
And priority list is long enough. For the different stakeholders, I want to thank Severin. That was the killer question. You raised the bar pretty high. But still, anyone who dares to ask a second question to this panel? Obviously not. So thank you.
But maybe one final question from me. So, very quick expectation. Is everything that is now in the pipeline in Turkey, in Greece, in Romania, Irene, going to be done? So how many new projects do you expect in the next 5 years? How many new
like
gigawatts of wind and solar?
I already mentioned. I mean, it's about 200.
Dimitris?
We're expecting over 12 gigawatts.
12 gigawatts until
The next
2030
yeah,
or 5 years.
For solar, only for solar.
12 gigawatts to be
Yeah.
finance
Be
constructed.
connected, yes.
So I shall answer for wind in Bulgaria. Out of the 4 that I said by 2030, maybe in the next 5 years we would need at least 2 to 3 to be finalized. Yeah.
3.
Yeah, 3. If we are to go to 4 by the 2020.
Irene, if you're with us, what do you think about Romania? How many gigawatts in the next 5 years?
In Romania, we expect around 8 gigawatts in the next 5 years. By the end of this year, we expect around 1.2 gigawatts to be connected to the grid, in the sense that we have utility scale projects that comprise around 700 gigawatts megawatts, waiting to be connected. And we also have the prosumer sector that is under a significant development. So we have around 500 megawatts from prosumers. We have 700 megawatts from utility scale, so 1.2 by the end of this year. And we expect a sustained development by 2026, 2027 of around 4 gigawatts, 5 gigawatts on top of the existing one. So by 2030, we expect something like 11.2 gigawatts to be connected and operational in Romania.
And I would guesstimate between, let's say, 4 and 6 gigawatts of solar projects being shovel ready in the next 5 years. How many of them are going to be constructed is an open question. Let's keep the suspense. For the next panels. Let's see, is there going to be offtake and grid for all these projects, and who is going to finance them?
And in between, I want to thank you all for participating in this opening panel today. I hope that we pioneered the technical side as well, and the other panelists will have it easier with the microphones. And now I invite you to do what we invited you here to do, to set your mindset to think like synergies and interconnection, and interconnect in the coffee break. We will be back here at 11 o'clock sharp.